Hi everybody, it's Susan Marie. So we've done a slow cook roast beef, and I am so excited about showing you this recipe because I feel like I've got it really down pat where it's a rich flavor. And one of the first things you'll notice is I'm shaving the cover, the outer layer of the celery. It just makes the celery kind of come alive. It gives it a really fresh flavor. And I'm using, you can see the baby carrots. Please buy the organic. They have such a great flavor. And the Dutch oven potatoes, the small potatoes, I don't even cut them, leave them full because they're going to cook for 5 or 6 hours. And then I do large bite-sized pieces of the onion. So those ingredients are going to go into the crock pot, but first we're going to have all of the meat floured and seared. So I take a couple of cups of all-purpose flour, and you'll see I'm using kosher salt that I grind up, which does add a great flavor, and peppercorn pepper that I grind up. So all that freshness does make a difference than using pre-cut peppers and salts. I use a little bit of Everglades seasoning, which is delicious. I think we get ours through the Omaha Steak Company, but it's a great seasoning. And then I use a high heat grapeseed oil. You might want to try that. Olive oil's great, but sometimes the burning of the olive oil changes the flavor. So I use the grapeseed oil, and it's high heat, and it says it on the bottle. Watch for that. So I obviously cover the meat heavily in the flour, and then I put a high heat on my Cuisinart cook pot. I don't use a frying pan. I don't want it to spatter all over my stove. And I sear that meat, not only on the top and the bottom, but the sides, because I've bought a larger, taller beef round to serve more. So I sear the whole thing, get it nice and covered in brown. That adds such a flavor to it. And then I drop it in with my beef broth that you'll see there. I've used our regular beef broth Swanson's I love. Then I add a little bit of seasoning, maybe a little more of the Everglades salt, pepper. Then I put all my ingredients, my onion, potatoes, celery, cover it with the beef broth, set it for 7 to 8 hours. And I've got it on slow cook. But towards the end, about an hour before it's completed, I'll go back in and test the meat. And if it's still a little bit tougher, I might cut it into smaller sizes and put it back in the pot so that it'll be fork tender. That way it has such a great flavor. Now I do gravy. I take the drippings from the meat. I add my cream of mushroom soup. And like my mother taught me, I take a little bit of all-purpose flour with cold water, shake it up, add it to the mixture, and spatula that in, and take my whisk and make it really soft and yummy. And let that slow cook for just a little bit while I've started my crock pot. Then I set it aside, and right before I go to serve the crock pot and the pot roast, I'll bring that gravy back up to a nice warm or a little bit hotter temperature, and I'm sometimes serving that over rice. And you'll notice here I add a little bit of Worcestershire and a little bit of soy sauce. It just kind of adds a little zip to the gravy, so it isn't just a flour and meat dripping. And I'll create a gravy and then heat it up right before we plate the food. So there's my meat. It's very tender. I was really surprised. It's fork tender. The potatoes are great. Don't cut them up so they'll stay nice and firm. So when you plate the food, you could just put the rice underneath the roast beef mixture or put it on a little separate bowl like I do. I kind of like the way this plating looks, but either way, it's delicious. My family eats every bite every time. It is so good. And the whole mixture itself has a really rich flavor without being over salted or over seasoned. Susan Marie's pot roast in today's world.